Everyone in Abwe knew Adaeze Okonkwo, and everyone in Abwe had an opinion about her. The women said she was proud. The men said she was beautiful. The elders said she was a girl who had watched her mother suffer and had made a silent vow to herself not to suffer like her. And you could not entirely blame her. She had grown up watching her mother bend her back on a farm that gave back barely enough, watching her father count coins that were never enough, watching her parents age before their time, worn down not by years but by want, by the grinding daily indignity of not having enough. Adaeze had looked at that life and said, no, not with cruelty, with terror. She was 23 when the suitors started coming, and they were good men. The first was Adaeze, a quiet farmer with kind eyes and hands that were already calloused from honest work. He came with coconuts and a humble heart. He told her he was building something. That land he was working on would one day be something great, that he had plans and patience, and that a woman like her deserved a man with a vision. Adaeze looked at his sandals, worn at the heels, and made her decision before he finished speaking. I cannot manage, she told her mother afterward. See his hands? He is a man who will work forever and still have nothing. I did not come to this earth to suffer. Her mother said nothing, but her eyes said everything. The second was Tabena, a teacher in the next village. Not rich, but educated. He brought her a book once as a gift. She thanked him politely and used the pages to wrap pepper in the market. He came 3 times. She sent him away 3 times. A teacher, she told her friend Ngozi, laughing. What does a teacher earn? Chalk dust and government promises? No, thank you. The third was Chidi, perhaps the most persistent. He was a trader starting small but moving. He sold provisions and was slowly growing his business. He came with a small gold necklace the 3rd time he visited, had saved for it 2 months. He placed it on the table before her. She picked it up, turned it over, set it back down. It's thin, she said quietly, not unkindly, just honestly. Chidi picked up the necklace without a word and walked out of the compound. He did not look back. Her mother, who had watched from the corner, said, Adaeze, a tree does not grow in a day. You are not looking for a husband. You are looking for a finished product. And finished products, my daughter, somebody else has already enjoyed the process. Adaeze kissed her mother's cheek and told her not to worry. 6 weeks later, Chukwuemeka walked into her life. He arrived on a Tuesday evening at the tail end of the market. The sun was doing that thing it does in Harmattan, bleeding orange and red across the whole sky like something spectacular was dying. And there he was, tall, ageless. You could not tell if he was 35 or 55, and somehow that didn't seem to matter. Dressed in white Guinea brocade so crisp it looked untouched by travel, though no car had brought him. Gold bangles on both wrists, thick ones, not the thin tourist kind. His shoes were leather, hand-stitched, the kind you did not find in any market in the region. He was standing near the well, watching Adaeze carry water, and he said, Forgive me. I have been in this village for 3 days, and I have not seen a woman carry herself the way you do. You walk like someone who knows her worth. Adaeze almost laughed, almost. Instead, she said, And who are you? Chukwuemeka, he said. a man who recognizes rare things. The gifts started within the week, and these were not thin gold necklaces. These were not books. These were not humble kola nuts from calloused hands. These were bolts of the finest Ankara, so many colors the compound looked like a festival. Perfumes in glass bottles that nobody in Abway had names for. A wristwatch, an actual wristwatch that he clasped around her, wrist himself while her mother watched from the doorway with an expression nobody could read. He paid her father's hospital bill, the entire bill, without being asked, without discussing it. He simply found out. The village talks. The village always talks. And the next morning, the hospital sent word that the account had been settled in full. Her mother wept. Adaeze took this as a sign from God. You see, she told Ngozi, her voice full of vindication. This is what I was waiting for. This is what patience looks like. I knew my standard was not too high. I knew he existed. Ngozi smiled. But later that evening, she walked home with a feeling she could not name sitting heavy in her chest. The elders tried. They asked questions. They sent the oldest men to inquire about his lineage, his family, his village of origin. I am from the eastern settlements, he would say pleasantly. My family is scattered. Most have passed on. Which family has all passed on? Which man comes from nowhere with this much wealth and no roots? But the kola nuts kept coming. The yams kept coming. The bride price, when it arrived, was so extravagant that 3 elders who had privately agreed to reject him found themselves quietly changing their minds. Old Mama Chidinma did not change her mind. She sat by her fire the night after the bride price was paid and said, to no one in particular, wealth with no source is not wealth. It is a loan, and the interest on that kind of loan is never paid in money. Nobody listened. This is the part of the story that the people of Abwe still talk about. Not with judgment, with grief. Because looking back, the signs were not hidden. They were everywhere. She simply did not want to see them. The dogs. Every dog in the compound barked when Chukwemeka arrived. Every single time. Not playful barking. The low, desperate kind that means wrong, 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 wrong. Adaeze's uncle beat his dog twice for it. The dog kept doing it. The food. In all the weeks of courtship, in all the visits, in all the meals her mother prepared and set before him, he never finished a plate. Never. He moved the food around. He smiled and complimented the cooking, but he never swallowed in front of anyone. Her mother noticed. She told herself he was a man of delicate appetite. The shadow. One afternoon, Ngozi visited and they sat outside in the compound while Chukwemeka stood talking to Adaeze's father. The sun was directly behind him. Ngozi watched his shadow on the ground. It was facing the wrong direction. She blinked, looked again. It was normal. She never told Adaeze what she saw. To this day, she says she wishes she had. The cold. Adaeze noticed in the last week before the wedding that when Chukwemeka held her hand, his palm was never warm. Not cold like a sick person, cold like stone left in shadow. She asked him about it once. He smiled and said, I have always run cold. My mother was the same way. She accepted this. Mama Chidinma's warning. The old woman took Adaeze by both hands 2 days before the wedding, looked into her eyes with the gaze of someone who has seen too much of this world and the next. "My daughter, I am begging you, before you leave with this man, look at his feet when he does not know you are looking. Just once do that for me." Adaeze laughed, the uncomfortable laugh of someone who is afraid and hiding it. "Mama, you and your superstitions. The man has done nothing but good." The old woman released her hands slowly. "The best traps," she said, "are baited with exactly what you're hungry for." The wedding was the talk of 4 villages. The food alone, it was a wonder. Goats, cows, rice, stew, drinks that nobody had seen before in bottles that caught the light like jewels. A generator so powerful the whole compound blazed like daylight, music, dancing. Adaeze attended. He sat quietly at the back and ate and watched and said nothing. He left before the dancing started. Tabena did not come. Chidi came, drank 1 cup of palm wine, looked at Adaeze in her wedding finery for a long moment, then stood up and left. None of them were invited. They came because in a village you go. You witness, even when the witnessing hurts. The ceremony was held at dusk. Chukwuemeka had insisted. He had very specific ideas about the timing, and everyone accommodated him because rich men's preferences tend to be accommodated. As they exchanged their vows, the fire in the center of the compound burned low, unnaturally low. The women nearest to it looked at each other. Nobody spoke. That night, Adeze's new husband held her hand as they entered the room. His palm, as always, was cold. She woke at 3 a.m. to use the bathroom, and she heard something, a bine sound from outside like wind, but there was no wind. More like breathing, like something large breathing slowly beneath the house. She told herself it was an animal. She went back to sleep, and she would have kept telling herself that, had she not, out of some instinct, she still cannot explain, pulled back the cloth covering, her husband's feet as he slept. They were facing backwards, both of them, heels where the toes should be, toes disappearing into shadow. Adaeze Okonkwo did not scream. She said later that the fear was so total, so complete, that it went past screaming into something else entirely, a horrible stillness. Like her body forgot how to be a body. She pulled the cloth back. She lay in the dark until morning. She did not sleep. She did not touch him. When he woke, he smiled at her and said, "Good morning," and she smiled back, and her face did not betray a single thing. This, the elders say, was the moment Adaeze truly became a woman. The compound Chukwuemeka took her to was 3 days, walk into the forest further than most people in Abwai had ever traveled in one direction. It was large and well built and completely, utterly wrong. No birds landed on the roof. No crickets sang at night. The well water tasted of metal. No neighbor's smoke was ever visible on the horizon. And there was a room. "You must never enter this room," he told her on the first day. The smile did not waver. The voice was still smooth. "It is where I keep my business documents, my private affairs." She waited 2 weeks. Then she opened it. It was empty, except for a smell, that smell of wet earth, sweet and wrong, and marks on the floor that looked like something had been dragged in. or out. And on the wall, scratched in what she'd prayed, was not what it looked like. She would not let me go. She would not let me go. She would not let me go. Repeated over and over, floor to ceiling. Adaeze sealed the room. She composed herself. She walked to the kitchen and cooked her husband's food, which he would move around his plate without eating. And that same evening, she bribed the traveling trader to carry a letter to Mama Chidinma. The letter said only 5 words. The old woman was right. Come. Mama Chidinma came with her daughter and a young diviner named Okik, a small, thin man who spoke rarely, charged nothing, and carried an old leather bag that smelled of camphor and something ancient. He walked the compound without speaking, pressed his bare feet to the earth, and stood in different places, like a man listening to a conversation happening below the ground. Then he stopped at the center of the compound. He crouched down. Here, he said, right here. Something was buried that should have gone free. They dug at midnight. Okik and Mama Chidinma's daughter and Adaeze, all 3 of them by the light of one kerosene lamp. A clay pot, black cloth tied 7 times around it. Inside, a photograph, already old, already fading at the edges. The man in the photograph was Chukwi Mika, younger but unmistakably him, taken at what looked like a wedding. On the back, in a woman's careful handwriting, the ink brown with age, my husband, my heart, gone to the ancestors too soon. God rest him. 1983. Adaeze read it 3 times. Okik spoke quietly, his eyes still on the earth. His first wife was a woman of terrible power and terrible love. When he died 40 years ago, she could not bear it. She performed the binding rite. She nailed his spirit to the earth. She said, "You will not go. You will live as a man lives. You will wait. And when I come to you, we will go together." She died 6 months ago. He has been waiting since then, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to stop, not alive, not at rest, just in between. The lamp flickered. Adaeze said very quietly, he knew when he came to me. He knew what he was. Okik hesitated. He knew and he did not know. When you are between worlds long enough, you forget which world you belong to. You start to want the things the living want. Warmth, company, a reason. He used me, Adaeze said. Yes, and he felt everything. He knew he was wrong. Okik looked at her. Yes, she sat with that for a long moment. I want him released, she said finally. Not because I forgive him tonight, but because no one, nothing, deserves to be held that long against their will. Not even this. Chukwemeka returned to the compound just before dawn and found them. He stood at the entrance of the compound and looked at the dug earth and the clay pot and the photograph in Adaeze's hands. And he changed, not violently, not grotesquely. He simply became what he actually was. The gold faded from his wrists. Not disappeared, faded like old paint and rain. The Agbada lost its crispness, and his face, that ageless, handsome, polished face, gained every year it had been pretending not to have. He looked tired. He looked incredibly, unspeakably tired. I did not want this for you, he said, and his voice was different now, old, worn at the edges. I tell myself I did not know what I was doing, but that is a comfortable lie. I knew. I just wanted so badly to still be something. Adaeze looked at him for a long time. "Are you ready to go?" she asked. Something in his face broke open. Not in a terrible way. In the way a door breaks open after it has been stuck shut for too long. "God," he whispered. "Yes, I have been ready for 40 years. Okonkwo performed the unbinding as the sun began to rise. He broke the pot. He burned the photograph and the black cloth. He poured libation on the 4 sides of the compound. He spoke in the old tongue, the words that opened the road the binding rite had sealed shut. Chukwuemeka stood in the middle of the yard. And then he simply lightened. That is the only word that everyone present uses when they tell this story. He lightened, like a man putting down a burden that had bent him for decades. His shoulders dropped. His jaw unclenched. His eyes, which Adaeze realized now she had never seen fully at peace, finally closed. And when they opened again, he was gone. Not with fire, not with wind, not with any drama at all. He was just gone, the way a candle is gone when the wax runs out. The compound stood empty in the early morning light. The wealth he had brought, the furniture, the provisions, the building itself, all remained. Only he had left. Adaeze Okonkwo walked back to Adaeze with nothing but the clothes on her back. She arrived on a Thursday morning, thin and quiet, and carrying something in her eyes that had not been there before. Not sorrow exactly. Something older, something harder and more useful than sorrow. The village looked at her, some with pity, some with the quiet satisfaction of people who say "we told you." She bore both without flinching. She went first to her mother, sat at her feet on the floor like a child, and wept, not the weeping of someone broken, but the weeping of someone finally putting something down. Her mother held her head and said nothing. Sometimes mothers know that saying nothing is the most powerful thing. Weeks passed. Adaeze helped on the farm. She went to the market. She carried her own water. And one morning at the well, she saw Chidi. He was loading provisions onto a truck. His trading business, she could see, had grown. Not yet rich, but moving. Real movement, the kind that comes from work done day after day in the quiet, without an audience. He saw her. He stopped. She expected coldness. She had earned coldness. Instead, he walked over slowly and said, "You look well." "I'm not," she said honestly. "But I will be." He nodded. "I know." And he went back to loading his truck. He came to her compound a month later. No gold, no speeches, no gestures designed to impress. He came with a bunch of garden eggs and ground nuts, the kind of thing you bring when you are coming as yourself and nothing else. He sat with her mother. He sat with Adaeze. He said, "I know what happened. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here because I never stopped. And I think you are someone worth not stopping for. But only if you are ready, and only if you want to." Adaeze looked at his hands, the same calloused, honest hands she had once dismissed. "I need time," she said. "I know," he said. "I have been waiting. I can wait a little more." They married 2 years later, not with extravagance, with family and palm wine and joy of the ordinary, irreplaceable kind. And in the years that followed, Chitty's farm expanded. Season by season, trade after trade, decision after careful decision, he built something real. By the time their first son was old enough to walk the fields, Chitty was the most prosperous farmer in the region. People came from other villages to learn his methods. The farm employed 12 men. The name Adaeze Okonkwo became synonymous with abundance earned. One evening, Adaeze sat outside, watching him oversee the harvest. This man she had once turned away because his sandals were worn at the heels, and she thought about something Mama Chidinma had said: finished products. Somebody else has already enjoyed the process. She thought about Chukwuemeka, about what his first wife's desperate, suffocating love had done to them both, about what her own desperation, a different kind, but desperation nonetheless, had nearly done to her. She called her daughter to sit beside her. The girl was 12, already showing the first signs of her mother's beauty, already beginning to notice the world noticing her. "Let me tell you something," Adaeze said. "A man with nothing who is building something is worth 10 men with everything who cannot tell you where it came from. The journey is not a sign of failure. The journey is the proof that it is real. A gift with no story behind it, no sacrifice, no process, no callus on the hand that gives it is not a gift. It is a transaction, and everything transactional comes with terms. Sometimes the terms are written where you cannot read them until it is too late. The man who gives you the world too quickly. Ask yourself, whose world is it really? And what will be required of you when the bill arrives? I almost paid with my life for a lesson your grandmother tried to give me for free.